Oh, look at us. Look at us.
Look at that. Are you wet? I'm wet.
I've never stopped being wet since we got the song back.
So fucking moist.
Since we got the song back. Oh,
yeah.
My God. It's just wet city. Wet city. I think the better question is, am I ever going to be dry again?
That's the question. I don't think so.
I can tell you now, no. I'm just going to confidently say no.
I know medical science says the anus isn't able to lubricate naturally. But
we just proved that wrong.
I think we proved that wrong.
That's right. There we go. What's going on?
I think
everybody?
the anus can lubricate naturally.
Yes, we just proved it. This is the Ramble podcast, a geek's guide to pop culture. We are the geeks. I would be comedian, cancer fighter, Jerry Rocha. Right there, we got my Mang, my brother.
Comedian Eddie Pence, also
Eddie
podcaster.
Pence. Yes, right there. Also lover. Say
lover?
It. Lover. Say it.
Collector of
Toys.
Scotch tape cassette.
Yes. Big thing. That's a big one.
Big one.
This is Ramble Radio 460. Thank you. If you're new to the Ramble, welcome, and we love you. If you're returning,
your
my
patronage.
God, we know you know how much we love you. If you're a returning listener, and if you're new here, or if you're a returner who hasn't done this yet, subscribe, 5-star rating, positive text, review.
And I also want to throw out there, whoever bought a shirt on TeePublic from the Ramble.
Thank you. We are honored.
Also, take a picture of yourself with it and post it. And
show us the merch.
I'd like to see it.
We have our fan page on Facebook. We have on Twitter. We're at Podcast Ramble 1. On Instagram, we're at Podcast Ramble. You can watch our lovely faces on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, the Ramble Tube. We have our TeePublic merch store. Buy that shit. Show it off. 5-star rating.
If you're listening to the Ramble or watching the Ramble, screenshot that, post it, put it up there.
Know. Tell us
let us know.
Yeah. And spread the word. I bet you have a friend or two who might love this podcast.
Right.
Well, fuck, we're right here.
Right.
5-star rating, positive sex review, subscribe to us. If you don't do those things, Eddie, we're going to have to assume you're a chump. And we don't want to do that.
I mean, I already do. You have to prove to me that you're not a chump.
Wow, there it is.
That's the thing.
There it is. You know what's not a chump? What we're going to talk about today. The WWF at the time before Royal Rumble game for the Super Nintendo. Now, we've talked about this a little bit. How important was this game to you? This was the game that made you get a job to be able to go get a Super Nintendo. Correct?
I went and got a job my sophomore year after college, the summer before my sophomore year in college. Before my junior year in college. No. Summer before my sophomore year. I was right. Summer before my sophomore year in college.
Because I was more think.
Yeah, summer before my sophomore year. Because I remember the game came out about a year or so prior. I was a senior in high school when the Super Nintendo came out, 91, 92.
Yep.
And my buddy had it, and I would go over to his house and play it. And I was like, fuck, I want this so bad. And so literally after my freshman year in college, I'm like, fuck it. My summer, I'm going to spend it. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to roll burritos.
You were a Genesis guy.
I was a Genesis guy. I was all Sega Genesis. I had a Nintendo, but then I advanced to Sega Genesis.
When it came to the 16-bit, you went Sega Genesis.
I went Sega Genesis because it came out before the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
So that's what I got my hands on. And my parents were like, "Well, you're not buying. You're not getting another game system. If you want a game system, you have to get a job." And I'm like,
I wanted a Genesis, but I had to settle. I would love the Super Nintendo, but I had to go with that because of Zelda. I was like, fuck it. I have to get Zelda.
Of course, Zelda.
I was in the same boat. I could only get one.
I only got one, and then so I got this job. I worked all summer. It's like minimum wage at the time was like $5 an hour, $5.25 an hour or whatever it was. So I had to work like it was like 8 weeks to get enough money to fucking buy a Super Nintendo.
What was the job?
I was a line cook at Carlos O'Kelly's. It was a Mexican restaurant.
Fast food or dine-in?
Dine-in. It was sort of like remember was it Chi-Chi's? Was there a Chi-Chi's?
Yeah,
Chi-Chi's?
Yeah, sure.
Sort of along those lines as like a Mexican themed restaurant.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Look at that.
Chain restaurant sort of thing.
And so you got a Super Nintendo.
I went and bought. I took my paycheck, cashed it, got all cash, walked into the Toys R Us.
Did you quit the job? Did you leave your job? Like I bought.
No, I hung around for the rest of the summer because I needed money for school the next year. Spending money. But the whole point of the job was to get that thing. So I took my check, cashed it at the bank, took my cash, walked into Toys R Us, bought the Super Nintendo and WWF's Royal Rumble. Bought both of them, laid them on the table, hand them the cash, walked out like a fucking man.
Like a G, like a man.
Walked in a boy, left a man.
Left a man. Oh, I worked at KB Toys my junior year in high school.
Ooh.
So I worked there for the discount on Super Nintendo games.
Sure.
And
smart.
For the X-Men, the Toy Biz X-Men line.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well,
see, if I had to do over again, I would have got a job at Toys R Us just to get the discount on the Super Nintendo and the games instead of working at a Mexican restaurant.
Sure. But man, I'll never forget how blown away I was. And that's an LGN game. Most LGN games fucking sucked. But that one I thought was so much fun. And I remembered just the Rumble idea of it was awesome.
Yeah.
And even though like you really just had that little hip toss button.
It wasn't a lot of moves you could do. It was just sort of throw them into the ropes, kick, punch, throw them out of the ring.
And then hip toss. That was it.
Right.
But I remember being blown away when you would win a match and they would play the theme song of the wrestler after you won the match.
That blew me. That was awesome.
Fucking God. Hearing The Undertaker, hearing Razor Ramones, hearing, oh, man.
The car squealing out.
Yes. That was so, and I'm trying to
because the graphics were great. The intro screens were great, and it would play everyone's
that was
music.
The punch noise.
Yeah. My only issue with it.
Yeah.
It was a fun game to play when you're playing the computer, but when you played other
multiplayer, it was terrible.
It was terrible because you would lock up and you would both just be stuck. You could play multiple players in the Royal Rumble.
Sometimes playing the computer, you would get stuck in the lockup.
Yeah.
You would have to fucking press super fast to try to do a scoop slam or a suplex. Yeah.
That was my only issue because you could go in and you could play multiple players in the Royal Rumble and it was fun to throw the other people out. But when it came down to your last two, it was
those lockups were terrible. The
lockups were terrible. It was terrible. But the rest of the game was fucking great.
It was such a I'm trying to think of I just remember how I'm trying to remember the roster. It was Razor Ramon, Macho Man, Tatanka, Undertaker, Heartbreak
HBK,
Mr.
Jake
Perfect, the Snake. Yep,
was Mr. Perfect in it?
He was in it. Jake the Snake was in it. Ric Flair and
Flair was in it.
And Luger.
No Hogan though. No Hogan. Luger
and Yokozuna. There was no Hogan.
And that's right, Yokozuna.
But there was no Hogan. Yeah.
No Hogan.
I remember that correctly. Yeah. Fuck that game. That was so much. And Yokozuna, it was fun to play as him because he was the only one that had a different model. Like all the rest is just the same body, but just different outfit or different
Yokozuna
haircut. At least
had a big fat model.
I was like, oh, okay. But that was the only character design. But man, was that the... All right, I'm going to make you do this. What was the best wrestling video game you've ever played?
It's got to... I mean,
let's forget the WrestleMania arcade game. Let's go home console only. I forgot.
Home console. It's still got to be either... It was on the original NES. It's either pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Our love for pro wrestling has always been great.
Yeah.
Because the matches were great. Unless you were King Slender... who just only had the one button for the move.
One button. It was awesome.
So as long as you made it illegal for anybody to be King Slender, you could have some good matches.
It was the best. It was the best.
There was another game on the original Nintendo, which was called Tag Team Wrestling.
That was really fun.
And that was a fun game. It didn't have a ton of great moves, but it was the first one where you could have tag matches. And I thought that was cool.
That was awesome. If pro wrestling had a tag feature, I think it's far and away.
By far.
I'm gonna have to go. For me, it was either pro wrestling. There's one for the Super Nintendo that's very underrated, and it's called Saturday Night Slam Masters, and it was fucking awesome.
I don't remember that one.
That's a fantastic wrestling game, but I think it's either between pro wrestling, and I hate to say this because I have such a soft spot for the Royal Rumble game.
Yeah.
Because the Royal Rumble is my favorite WWE event. It's my favorite, always has been. And to actually get to play the game, I think what would have put it over is if they did a countdown and if they played the music when a different wrestler came in.
When someone came in.
It'd been fucking. And
now, you can't forget either WCW.
That's what I was going to say for the Nintendo
WCW.
64.
No, I'm talking about for the original NES, the WCW game.
That was because that was when they had the Road Warriors in the cover, right?
It had the Road Warriors. You could be
Sting, right? Sting was in there.
The roster was the Road Warriors, Sting, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. No, you had Flair. You had Arn Anderson.
Arn had to, yeah.
I think you had Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. I'm trying to think. There was a couple others on there.
I didn't have that game. My cousin had that game.
And then if you played in single player mode and went through the roster, when you got to the final guy, it was called Giant Machine. That's who you wrestled.
Giant Machine. That's right.
And
that
I think
was
it was
the one that that's the one that had Hawk and Animal on the cover, right?
Yeah, and it was basically Andre the Giant in a mask. It was Giant Machine.
He was the WCW master. It looks
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have it was Flair, Sting, Luger, Rotundo.
It's Mike Rotunda. Mike Rotunda.
The Road
that's right.
Warriors, Dr. Death, Steve Williams.
Yeah, Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner was in it too, I think, wasn't he?
Yes.
Or it was Dr. Death.
No, it was Kevin Sullivan, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rick Steiner, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, and Michael P.S. Hayes. That was
Pierce X Hayes, because he would do a DDT, and then Kevin Sullivan would do a bulldog, a running bulldog move, which was fucking badass.
And then the WC Master, based on Andre the Giant, the final opponent, his mask is reminiscent of Andre's Giant Machine gimmick.
Giant Machine gimmick, yeah.
Yep. So
when he was in WCW, it was a great game. And when you would be Sting and go into you go into Scorpion Deathlock.
Oh, dude.
And then you'd be Flair doing the figure 4, and it was a really fun game.
Yeah, dude, look at this. So apparently, this was a reskinned game. The Japanese version of that WCW game, was called Superstar Pro Wrestling. Dude, it had on the same Andre. It had the Road Warriors. Are you ready for who else was in it?
Who?
It had fucking Inoki. You could be Giant Baba. You could be Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, Big Van Vader, and
Stan the Lariat Hansen,
and Abdullah the Butcher.
Dude, I wonder if you can still get a copy of that game.
Superstar Pro. I'm gonna try to hunt this fucking thing down.
That sounds fun.
Superstar Pro Wrestling. Now that's my new mission. I have to hunt this thing down. Let's see what it's going for, shall we?
That game was so much fun. I love playing that game.
That
might be my favorite wrestling game.
I think my favorite one was the one that was the WCW versus NWO for the
those were fun because you could change the skins of the rings and stuff like that. You could make them NWO rings.
At the time, like
they did that for the original PlayStation too.
Yeah, and I was thinking we're never gonna get graphics that look better. You know what I mean? Like this is so. I think it's good.
But as far as gameplay, WCW was a fun game to play.
That was a great. You know what? I'm gonna have to revisit that one again. It's been so long. But
That's
now we gotta try to. I gotta try to find that.
I know. I want to play that game. I want to play
fucking Abdullah the Butcher. Fucking Bruiser
Stan the Lariat Hansen.
When has Bruiser Brody ever been? Oh God, that would be fucking. Oh man. Well. Eddie, we've done it. We've come to the end of our marathon. What a Ramble Radio, talking about the great pro wrestling games out there. The only bad news is we have contractual obligations.
Fuck. All right. Skeletor. We were talking about our favorite wrestling games. What do you have a favorite? It doesn't have to be wrestling game. Do you have a favorite video game?
Okay.
He's a little busy. He's playing my favorite video game right now. Make Dex come.
Okay.
Make Dex come.
I got game. I got game going. I got go back. Probably Rampage.
Why do we do these after dark?
I don't know.
Why do we do these after
Okay.
dark? Oh, did you guys hear that?
What?
A few more drops have been added to the Lake Ojizir.
No. I don't let one drop fall out, so he's wrong.
Okay.
Jesus fucking. That's what we get for this marathoning. That's what we get for this after dark.
We deserve it.
That's
we deserve it.
Jesus fucking God. Cinesnob Cody, please.
Yeah, Cinesnob, please. And then me.
Yeah.
5 days a week, patreon.com, The Ralph Report. Tuesdays, Fridays, Ramble Radio. Wednesdays, Ramble Proper. Also on Fridays, Not Today with Jen Sturger.
Oh, he wants you all to remember that the Lake O'Jiz. Eddie, I guess he asks you to ask him or us where that Lake of Jizz is in Eternia.
Where?
He-Man's mother's pussy is what he said.
Okay.
You can find me in the same Ramble places you can find Eddie and Cody. I'm streaming games most nights, Retro Roach on Kick and Twitch. Just my name on YouTube. Find us, love us. You know to do all those things. We will be back next week, maybe with Alt-Right Cody for some more. Until then, stay safe. We love you all. Adios a todos. Don't make a fuck out of us. Subscribe. All that. Bye-bye. Dude, we got to find that game now.
I know.
We got to...
I want to just play the regular WCW one now that I'm thinking about it.
It's on that thing I gave you.
Oh, is it? I got to check it. I haven't looked.
That shit'll be on there. But yeah, I got to find this again. What was it called?
I wonder if PBG has it.
Pro. Oh, you mean the original... I bet the old school cartridge. I bet he does. I
have the old school cartridge. I think it's in my garage. I gotta go look.
Do you think he might have the Japanese one?
I want the Japanese version. I want to play with Stan the Laird Hansen and Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh, that would be so fucking cool. And the Bruiser. Oh man.
Oh, it's awesome.
That'd be amazing.